Welcome back. We were taking a quick break while they're finishing out the rotation so we get the Final Four underway. If you're just joining us, I'm Brooks Clark. With me is John Rogers, and we have a special guest in between in this intermission for us, Johnny Norfleet. Johnny Fordham, sailing head coach, team racing savant, member of the Big Whoop squad, and certainly was on the broadcast with us last year. Johnny, welcome back.
Thanks for having me. Glad to step in for a bit.
Yeah, so what's it like for you at this event, watching it as a coach, but you're not a part, your team, you have no dog in the fight?
It makes it all that much more fun for me because watching as a coach, particularly for me personally, it was a pretty stressful environment. We were in it 2 years ago in Newport, and you're pretty much pulling your hair out, watching every mistake happen. And from this level, I can kind of just appreciate it as a team race fan, and see basically the top level team race in the country and watch it happen, watch it unfold.
Yeah, so a lot of racing, 100, however many races, like 147. After the dust settled, we had this top 8. Any surprises for you in this top 8? I mean, a lot of, MIT personally to me surprised it. I was thinking Navy might have done a little bit better, and I was really surprised to see Hobart sail as well too.
Yeah, I mean, I think going in for my predictions, I had the back half and the fringe of the top 8 kind of figured out how I thought it would. I figured Tufts and MIT would be right in the fringe, ODU right there, Eckerd would pay spoiler, which they did do for a couple schools like ODU and Tufts. But MIT sneaks in. The biggest surprise for me was actually Navy, finishing almost on the outside, almost in that tie-breaking scenario, winning the last couple races to sneak into the top 8. And I thought, and I think a lot of people thought that coming in that they were going to be the team with the most likely chance of upending Yale, given their results this year, winning the conference championship, winning the Prosser Trophy. They won the Admiral Moore team race held by SUNY Maritime. So they, raced well on current, beat Georgetown, sailed well against all these teams all season, and see them come out and finish basically outside with not really a shot of even making the top 4 was surprising, a little disappointing to see.
Yeah, definitely. When I was chatting with Dylan Pava, the assistant coach down there and kind of the team racing guru for the program at the moment, he was saying that just very disappointed. They were really looking forward to the Nationals, and this was going to be a breakthrough year for the program, and they did sail consistently well. But looking at the top now, going into this Final Four, we were just talking before we went live just how close this all is. We got Charleston leading the way at 8-4, Yale at 8-4, Georgetown right behind them at 17-5, and BC still with a shot to podium. I don't know if they have a shot to win. I think they have to win out.
Yeah,
but at 15-7.
Yeah, it looks like that last race with Charleston beating Yale did good things for, maybe not for the Yale team, but as a team race fan watching this regatta play out, you like to see the event come down to the last race or two. It's not really fun as a competitor or as a viewer to see the regatta basically clinched going into the Final Four, which is kind of what we've had happen the last few years with Yale being so dominant. But Charleston getting that win sets basically it's anyone's game between Charleston, Yale, and Georgetown, sitting only one race win apart. It looks like right now BC at 15-7. The best they could do, I think, is second, maybe third. So they're looking to maybe play spoiler to these top 3 teams. But it looks to me, if Georgetown wins out and either Charleston or Yale lose a race to BC, then they've got a shot to win. I haven't looked at the head-to-head between Georgetown and Yale and Georgetown and Charleston, but Georgetown should have a shot to win. And then Yale and Charleston obviously tied going in on record. Charleston owns the head-to-head with both wins against Yale, but if either of those teams win out, they win the event. So it's looking like the event could come down to that last race, the 6th race of the Final Four between Yale and Charleston, which is kind of how the rotation is designed, and it's what you like to see. Put it all on the line for that one last race.
Yeah, it definitely builds the suspense further down the committee. Yes, Sean, sorry.
So let's see, Charleston, if I were to write this on paper, we had 3 seniors for Charleston last year.
Yeah.
And they got 5th. And this year they have a much younger team. What do you, is it a home field advantage, or is there more to it than that?
I think, some elements definitely in home field advantage. We saw Charleston come out here at the beginning of the season and win the Bob Bevere team race. Obviously, that was a long time ago. We've had a lot of team racing between then and now. But, they showed that they could win their home water. And then the rest of the season, they sort of underperformed expectations relative to that first finish. And they've been sort of a middling team race team. On paper, they were probably the 7th or 8th best team coming in. But yeah, going back to last year, they had a great group of seniors that had sailed together for 3 years essentially, with Jake Reynolds and Dodge Rees and Ryan Davidson, who's now out here PROing this event. So you would have thought that with those 3 seniors graduating that this would be a bit of a rebuilding year for them, but working hard this season to overcome some of the team race mistakes they had kind of midway through the team race season, and then having the home field advantage, I think both those things combined, has put Charleston at the top. You can say what you want about the home field advantage; it definitely helps, but they're not here just from home field advantage. They're sailing their way into this and leading going into the top 4.
Absolutely, I agree. I think another asset of the home field advantage, Johnny, isn't just what's going on the water, but every single night these sailors just go home, sleep in their own beds, have a nice dinner, and just go to sleep and come back to the venue that they've done so many times, some of these seniors, every single day for the last 4 years. So it's just routine.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing out of the ordinary.
And so it's a similar situation with BC. Erica wasn't here last year. They had the Snipe World Champion Raul Rios on BC. They had Scotty Sinks, and I can't remember who their third was last year. Very experienced. And then this year, they have a new teammate, and they seem to be doing better.
Yeah, I think their third last year, Harry Capel, has been their third this year as well. But they had to obviously, replace Erica, put her in place of Raul from last year. But this group, in one form or another, has sailed together for the last 3 years. I think the 3 skippers 2 years ago, it was a mix of Scotty Sinks, Erica, Raul, and then Will Bailey, who graduated that year. And then Scotty stepped up, and Harry stepped up last year to join that team with Raul, and now Erica's filtered back in. So at some point in time, all 3 of these skippers for BC have sailed, at their national championship or at their top events in the last couple of years. And these guys do a lot of team racing as well in the off season. I know that they went down. I think it was this exact squad went down and sailed the Team Race Midwinters this year, which is an open event, but a lot of college teams attend, hosted by Eckerd, right around New Year's. And I think it was this same group of at least 3 skippers, if not skippers and crews. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they might have won this year. I can't remember. I didn't see the results. I wasn't there, but they did well.
The St. Mary's, the Team Thunder kids, Mateo and
You might be right. Yeah, you might be right.
So I was just poking around here on the text board, Johnny. Look, we're talking about the head-to-heads. Looks like Yale does not own the head-to-head. Charleston beat them both times. So that might be a factor coming into this race, into the Final Four here. But they do own the tie head-to-head over Georgetown, which again might also become a factor. But looking at Charleston, I believe Georgetown owns the head-to-head on them. So Georgetown owns the tie over Charleston. Charleston owns the tie over Yale, and Yale owns the tie over Georgetown.
Yes, that makes sense. So, basically where that puts Yale is if they do win out, they own the regatta. But if they lose one of the races, beating Charleston in the last race might not matter if Charleston had won out, because if Yale loses to either Georgetown or BC, that puts them at 5 losses. And if Charleston can beat both Georgetown and BC and they go into that last race, 1 race up on Yale, it's not going to matter. The tie, Charleston owns the tie. It's always nice to, you typically meet each other 3 times in an event like this. It's really nice to get that first win, and then if you can own that second win going into the final round, it's huge owning that tiebreaker, because it gives you a little wiggle room, a little cushion at the end of the event. Charleston can maybe afford 1 more mistake than Yale can in these last 3 races per team, 6 races overall.
Yeah. So, now one thing, I'm not the team racer. I'm the dinghy small keelboat racer. And the team racer, one thing, we've got this move called the Brooks, where teams in like 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th come around and they go the low road. And we were noticing there was always big gains over and over. What do you teach? Do you just blindly tell them, get around the mark and protect the left immediately if it's even relative, not even real close?
What it was, Johnny, it was just someone not covering someone on downwind. They just hooked into a vein of pressure, and all of a sudden they're in.
But most of the teams would just automatically do that reach high mode, and they're just protecting, it seems like. But it seemed to me, I'm ahead 6 boat lengths. I don't know how a guy in the same boat as me behind me catches me.
From what I've been seeing, watching some of the live stream at home and then being here for the last hour or so, watching the end of the top 8 from up on the deck, the fact that they're sailing into current all the time makes these downwinds really long, and it allows a long time to have that breeze covering someone from behind. It gives you a lot of time to make that ground. And also, it's something we saw in the fleet racing too. If you could get a slightly different, slightly more pressure when you were sailing into current, whether that was upwind or downwind, whatever it was during the day, if you could be in slightly more pressure sailing into current, whereas everyone else was essentially parked, making very little progress over land.
Yes.
Just that little more pressure was enough to gap you out. So oftentimes, particularly when someone gets brought high on the run, just by nature of being covered, that low boat makes huge gains just because they're able to sail, they're able to make better VMG down current, and I think it's just extenuated by the fact that there's current. It would happen either way on a race course, but I think it happens that much quicker when you're sailing into current.
Definitely, I saw yesterday sometimes people would go low, and it looked like they weren't moving at all, so that reaching was actually they were just going a little bit faster.
Yep, exactly.
And making something against the current, so, okay.
Well,
What is my other question that baffled me? What happens if one of your teammates gets a bad start? Is there a tactic, like we've had fouls right before the start, somebody over early. If you start sixth, do you have a tactic or a strategy for what you tell your team?
The goal is pretty much just to get your way back in the race any way possible. The nice thing with these downwinds being so long and having so much current running against you downwind with the upwind current is that you do get an opportunity. We've seen a lot of races where it looked like the 6 was just totally out of the race as they rounded Mark 1, and then by the time they were halfway down the run, they were right back in the race. So that is nice for the trailing teams. They do have a little bit of an opportunity to mix it up, get back in the race. But really your goal as the 6 is just to do the best you can to sail free, try and get back in the race, because if you can get at least one of the other team's boats behind you, you can jump into the 5, you add a lot of power to your team and their ability to chase forward, whether they have the 1-2 and you now have an ace, or whether you're trying to make a play 2 happen, you have a pair behind you, you have a say in the race.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
We were just noticing, I believe PRO Ryan Davidson just jumped in for a little dip out there. Been a long day for him, long 2 days, and it's going to be even more racing coming up, not only today but for the rest of the regatta. Let's see if we can get a camera shot of him swimming back to the committee boat.
Yeah, running laps between the pin and the race committee.
So Johnny, I think a lot of things that we've seen today. Yeah, there's Ryan right there.
Did he swim for Charleston or what? That's pretty good. Well, that right arm looks a little weak. I'm changing my tune now.
Oh, that's funny. The water temperature is so warm here anyway, and he's working so hard out there, baking in the sun all day, so that's well deserved. But so Johnny, another thing that we saw a lot so far, all regatta really, is how unstable that 1-2-6 is. We were talking just about how the downwinds consolidate everything, but I don't think I've ever seen so many 1-2-6s get broken up ever in a team race event.
I think, part of it, the nature of the 1-2-6 is that it is really unstable. On paper, it looks like it would be a solid combination, right? You see a 1-2 and you think maybe they're sailing away. They're basically fleet racing at that point. But with 3 boats to comfortably cover on the downwind, if that 3-4-5 can round close to the 1-2, you're almost guaranteed to break it up. And I think, like we were saying, that's almost extenuated with the current running up course, because it just slows down those downwinds so much. It allows you to easily bring that boat high, and you can either send 2 boats down low and get one of them around the front, or you can even do the double team up high and send someone around the front, so you can pass them 2 ways when you're in that 3-4-5. So really not being in the 6 and a 1-2, having that ace makes the play that much more stable, because you can, when things start to look questionable up front, A, there aren't 2 boats chasing, or there aren't 3 boats, it's only 2 boats, and B, when things start to look questionable, you can put the brakes on and go into that insurance mode, gap that 6, and you're 1-4-5 at worst.
Gotcha. Yeah, Johnny, when you weren't watching the live stream here, powered by U.S. Sailing, you said earlier you were watching the America's Cup. Want to give us a little bit of an update on that? I haven't seen anything yet today.
Yeah, it's running live. I think it's over now. I think it was running from like 1 to 4. On NBC Sports, which is great to see. I had non-sailing friends texting me telling me they were watching the America's Cup, so it's cool that it's on TV, for the average viewer. And they're doing a great job. The coverage is just unreal with the aerial footage in Bermuda. I was able to catch a couple of the races. Didn't see everything, but saw USA Oracle's first loss. They lost to Artemis today in a bit of a sail away, actually.
Quite handedly?
Yeah, it started out close for the first couple marks. Artemis got up ahead, and Oracle was kind of rounding right behind them, and it looked like they were going to be able to pass them because they were running the foils a little bit better, but Artemis wound up catching a shift on one of the sides of the race course and just kind of running away with the race.
Gotcha. Well, you're from Bermuda, Johnny. What does that mean to you to have the America's Cup there?
It's cool, yeah. I grew up I'm originally from the U.S., but grew up sailing in Bermuda and sailed Opties there and lived there for a few years. It's exciting. It's really cool for the country. the whole island is kind of formed around the America's Cup and is supporting it and embracing it. And I think it's done a lot for the economy there. Just the fact that they've been able to create that many more jobs, in the construction, in the overall logistical management of the event. And it's exciting to see there. It's putting Bermuda on an international stage, and it's bringing tourism there, and it's putting a lot of money into the country. And I'm biased, but I think it's one of the best places, if not the best place in the world to sail. So to see it happen in Great Sound there is
now on our screen.
Yeah, there it is. So USA taking their first loss.
What's that first column? That's from the Louis.
I think it's
points carried over from the World Series events from earlier this year and last.
Artemis really was raising the bar for everybody. Just 3 weeks ago, Artemis was the most stable boat out there, and some teams have caught up to them, I think, a little bit. So you see them at 2-2, despite the fact they were pretty dominant just 2 weeks ago in the practice races.
Yeah, I believe we might be able to see it on the screen here. I believe Artemis had a loss to Team France, and that was their first win of the event. And a lot of people coming in thought France was a very outside contender for the event, with not really any shot of jumping in and really beating these teams. And the fact that they came out and beat Artemis, a team who in turn beat Oracle, says they're here to play.
Yeah, the narrow margin of error and these top skippers, Nathan Otteridge for Sweden there, and New Zealand's Peter Burling, and the French have pooched it more than anybody. If you watch the videos there, you can watch those. What is it, on My Bermuda Home or something? They show practice sailing and all kinds of stuff. And man, can you imagine 40 to 50 knots and pooching it and just flushing the deck with water? It's almost like you have to be tied into the thing just to stay on board.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like France has just always been a step back from the racing that I've seen. I'm by no means an expert on the subject, just watching here and there when I can. But it seems like France has just been one step behind in terms of actually sailing the boats, keeping them up on the foils. So, tactically they're there. They've had good starts. They've been able to start ahead, but the other teams have beat them in their ability to stay up on the foils longer. We saw it even in the race that they won. France came around the gate and came right off the foil. They had a big enough lead, and they caught a shift in the next beat. They were able to stay ahead. But that's where it seems like they've been weakest. It's just their ability to keep the boat foiling, whereas those other teams have been out there practicing. I think France didn't get to Bermuda until pretty recently, at least relative to the other teams. Some of those teams have been posted up with their home base in Bermuda for the last 2-3 years, training extensively in their 45s and now in the new boats, whereas France kind of just showed up. So the other teams have a lot more time on the water and experience sailing the boats than France does. But hey, the fact that France won a race says, maybe they can do it. Maybe
if you all can rally up your friends who are watching the America's Cup and shift them over for this Final Four of this great team racing regatta, and we'll give out the Wood Trophy later, so make sure you're here for those too. So hopefully people are jumping from that show to our show online.
And while Johnny's here, I said he's a member of the team racing team, Big Whoop, earlier. US Sailing wants everybody to know that the application for the Hinman opens June 30th. So Johnny, can we get an exclusive here first that you will be sailing the Hinman this year?
Unfortunately, this year I cannot sail the Hinman. It conflicts with the college sailing season this year, just due to scheduling with Sewanaka Yacht Club. Sewanaka is excited to host a really good event, and they, as they have done in the past. But unfortunately, due to their event schedule, they're pretty booked for the summer. So they're having the event clearing the mooring field, but it's going to be in late October. So it conflicts with, unfortunately, our women's championship. So I don't think I'm doing it this year. But I think that that's a weekend where a lot of the co-ed and team race teams in college sailing should be able to do it. So I would encourage anyone in college sailing to go ahead and apply. They're looking for teams. They want more teams to do it. Last year, they were one shy of the 12 teams they wanted. It only wound up being 11 teams. It's going to be in the new Zim E420, which they're excited to have it in. So no more Zim 15. So it's back in essentially what we sail in college in the collegiate 420. It's Zim's version of the Z420. So it's preparing the sailors for what they sail and what they compete in every day in the spring.
Great. So we did just receive word that they are currently in the process of hearing those redresses, so we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. As soon as the boats make their way back out on the water, we will be with you live to bring you full coverage of every race remaining here in the Final Four here at the LaserPerformance Team Racing National Championship in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm Brooks Clark, John Rogers, Johnny Norfleet. Thank you for taking time with us. You might stick around for the Final Four, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, yeah, love to be here.
All right, thanks, Johnny.
Awesome. Thank you.
So stay tuned.
Thanks,
Hey, don't go away. Tell your friends, tell your mom, tell your dog.